Okay, I want to address some drama going on. I didn't think I would, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Basilides and urban Maoism are beefing. Basilides is a creative person in many respects. And, you know, I'm by no means am I trying to attack them or anything like that. But I want to offer a friendly criticism and an observation. Not so much toward Basilides, who is within their liberty to do whatever they want. And, you know, I'm not here to, like, knock on their shit. But more so that I don't find it particularly in line with what Infrared is trying to do. And he's doing something, and that's totally fine. I'm just like, I feel like a lot of people in the community sometimes look at that and they're like, oh, this is... It's kind of like, I feel like sometimes it's like a meta-narrative on Infrared. And I want to go ahead and say, like, I don't approve of that as a meta-narrative on Infrared. Like, some of the ideas and theory that I've shared here, I don't think that fulfills it, you know? I feel like, you know, what we need to be doing right now is give results, tangible results, not in terms of the creation of ideas, but in terms of the finding of discoveries, right? Like, how do we understand Marx's Capital? How do we rediscover Marxism? How do we get concrete analysis of the concrete situation? This is more so what I'm aiming at. Concrete analysis of the concrete situation. And that is so important right now. It's not important to create this grand narrative of, like, I just feel like it kind of is obscurantist. Like, I don't like the red versus blue stuff at all. To give my criticism, I feel like, I don't want to, like, in a derogatory sense, call it schizophrenic. So I'll preface what I mean by schizophrenia. I mean, like, I feel like it is committing something really erroneous, which is isolating one of the patterns in our manifold of experience and reality and elevating that to the status of, like, a sublime, mystical, like sometimes you could do that with colors, like red or blue. A lot of times people do it with numbers, right? There's literally that guy, Gary, the numbers guy, does it with numbers. Dialectics teaches us that everything is interrelated, that reality is one whole. Although there's two wholes. Reality is one whole, right? It's one interrelated whole. It's one totality. Everything is interrelated. So, like, yeah, blue does have associations. Red does have associations. But it is arbitrary to abstract red and blue just because they have all of these other associations to the status of a master signifier. Because guns have a, you know, arbitrary association. I mean, you know, if you're gonna do a thing of red and blue, why not go further? Why not go? This is like Marx's rising from the abstract to the concrete. Spoiler alert! This is something I'm gonna be releasing soon, but it's not specific enough, right? What is color? What is color itself? What is the electromagnetic spectrum? What is the color spectrum, right? What is that? On a physical level, what is that, right? Not what does it represent, what is that, right? It's not specific enough. You can always get to a deeper level of specificity. And people like Nick Land, I think, have already done that in a better and more exhaustive way when it comes to things like thermodynamics, right? Which is much less arbitrary, because at least it sets upon the limits of modern science, right? Red and blue doesn't do that. It's just not specific enough, right? And then, you know, I don't want to mock it, but I'm just a comedian, so I'm going to make it funny. I feel like people are out here like, oh my God, red and blue? Oh my God. And then I feel like one day this dude's going to come to the scene. He's going to be like, oh yeah? Green. Oh my God! And it's just, this is not how you produce novel insights. This is not how you generate knowledge. Yeah, we get it. Everything is interrelated. By abstracting one thing and saying that's God, basically, it's going to be really easy to generate new forms of knowledge, because you're going to generate, oh, this other thing is also interrelated. Oh, well, this other thing is also interrelated. You're not getting to the concrete essence of things. So my recommendation is go back to Marx's rising from the abstract to the concrete. That is the method of dialectical inquiry, right? You have to begin with the premise that everything is an interrelated, interconnected whole. You're not making new discoveries by showing how certain things are share association. The association between concepts and words and all that kind of stuff, that's not a miracle to point out. It's a miracle to point out how a totality sets upon its threshold. Like MAGA communism tries to do this with regard to politics in some kind of way, right? The relation between MAGA and communism, that is setting upon the threshold of the political in America. Like that is a novel insight, right? You know, I'm not as harsh as Prism is, because Prism is out here like, this is all jibber jabber. It's jibber jabber, right? Me, I'm like, you know, it's not dialectical. So, but that's just my friendly criticism. And I'm only saying this because I see it elsewhere as well. And I have to say one final I like Basilides, by the way, and I think they're bright. And show a lot of potential, but I want to offer my views on this because I feel like it would be irresponsible of me to just sit back at, you know, because I just see other people kind of indulge in this stuff as well sometimes, and I just kind of don't want to give the impression that it represents my views. Last thing I want to say about the Basilides stuff, I don't like the blue. No, don't like it. Nope. That's like where I this is what pushed me over the edge, to be honest. That's what pushed me over the edge. No. No, blue is the color of liberalism, okay? I don't know who needed to hear this. No, there will never be infra blue. It's the color of liberalism, okay? You can put it in any roundabout way you want, but it's like, there's a reason red is communism, and there's a reason the East is red. You want to talk about the dialectical interrelation of all things? The real is rational. Remember what Hegel says, all that is real is rational. It wasn't a mistake that the Soviets were red, or that China's red. And they made a song called The East is Red. And red, red, red is such a sacred color in communism. I draw the fucking line there. Like, no, we will not be revising history. We will not be revising history about what is the color of communism, because there's a reason it is. And if you can't understand that reason, you have insufficiently set your mind to the task of understanding it. There's things like about sea-based power versus land-based power, and I feel like this is a big mistake. This is in a roundabout way to repeat Atlanticism. Really big mistake. And I have to strongly emphasize that. Now, I'm not against blue. I'm not against blue, okay? I'm not against blue. I'm not like autistic. I'm just saying, politically speaking, it's possible that blue, I don't know, but like, politically speaking, blue is liberalism. Politically speaking, right? Politically speaking, right now, you know? There's exceptions here or there, but overall, like, communists are red, okay? Red. So I gotta emphasize that, you know? It's just aesthetics. Yeah, I get that. I just disagree. But that doesn't matter if I disagree, because it's just my opinion. But, you know, I gotta share my opinion on these things. You know? Basilides is very creative, unique in a lot of ways, but a lot of things I can't agree with. He thinks that telluric doesn't equal on land. Again, I know, but I don't think that's dialectical. But yeah, just because you can show how every single binary can be inverted into its opposite doesn't negate the importance of that binary. It's almost like when transgenders are like, well, there's feminine aspects of masculinity too, therefore men are women. It's like, no, you don't understand how things become totality. How things become determinate, concrete distinctions in reality. Yeah, they are laden with qualities of their opposite, of course. That doesn't make them any less concrete determinations. Okay? Telluric is land on land. And unless you're creating a new language that's just completely incommensurate with others. incommensurate with, like, you know, the actual, like, precedent historical work on this. Like, for example, you have Mackinder on the World Island, you have Carl Schmitt, you have Alexander Dugin, you have several others, where telluric means something very specifically, right? Telluric is about, well, my interpretation of the telluric, at least, is about determinate objectivity, right? The Mongol modernity versus the you know, official modernity. I know I say a lot of things that seem out of there. Like, I say things like Mongol modernity. I have these unique concepts, but I want you guys to know that every unique thought or concept I contribute to you, I strive. It's because I think it's grounded in something concrete. It's because I think it reflects a concrete. It's not because I'm, like, taking advantage of the fact that, you know, you can understand words in any way you want to. It's because I think there's something concretely true, for example, about Mongol modernity. And I leave it very vague and ambiguous, not because I want to be obscurantist, because A, I haven't figured out the whole thing, and B, because I want there to be wiggle room for people to be able to explore this and yield a concrete insight. Like, Mongol modernity. Why do I think that's concrete? Because it's a lead. Like, think about it. Like, we think that modernity begins with Europe, but when we think about the objective conditions that gave rise to modernity, all hitherto kind of thought about that focused on philosophy or religion. It was like, oh, modernity has its origins in philosophy. Probably something like Heidegger would say, right? Or it has its origins in religion, which seems like it's a little more true, right? You have people like Bruno Latour who are like, oh, it's a strained, a specific strain of Gnosticism. They're all understanding only on the surface. And when I think about what is a materialist understanding of the genesis of modernity, I feel like you can't leave out the fact of this incredible, unprecedented world historical event of the Mongols, the rise of the Mongols and their legacy, the legacy of the nomadic steppe empire that culminates in the Mongols, and all of the descendants of that, which were just vying to claim legitimacy over it. Like, all of the major land empires since the Mongols were claiming to be descendants of Genghis Khan. And then Tamerlane kind of completes this in a way, right? Or sorry, he kind of wants to repeat this in the way. I think there's something somewhat similar about what modernity is there. Like, the quality of this kind of universalism, the quality of this notion of a fixed territorial boundary corresponding to sovereignty, the quality of, like, you know, a universal empire with a beginning and an end, right? Elevated over all kind of parochial, religious, ethnic, whatever formations. And I think in terms of materially, the Silk Road and the trade routes that were opened up by that, you can't look at the rise of European modernity without understanding how essential that was, right? So, I mean, this is really what I mean by it. Guys, don't be autistic. I'm not declaring war on the color blue. I'm just defending why communism is red. Like, communism is a red flag. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. Yeah, blue is part of the heritage and cultures of many or almost all civilizations. That's fine. It's on flags. It's even on the North Korean flag. That's fine. I'm just saying, I'm defending why communism is associated with the color red. Like, that's important, right? I don't want us to descend into madness and sophistry and jibber-jabber where motherfuckers are going to start being like, just discovered something crazy. The number 5 is really prominent. Like, no. Or I don't want to like have some shit where people are like, what if instead of the workers, animals were the real revolutionaries, like horses? Like, I'm sorry. Like, it needs to be concretely justified. Concrete justification. It has to have some basis in something concrete. Okay? Meat and potatoes, concrete. It has to be out of concrete necessity. Okay? Concrete necessity. Like, instead of the hammer and sickle, what if it was the symbol of infinity? Because communism is infinite. You don't even know how far this rabbit hole goes. Nah, I'm sorry. We gotta draw a line, you know. Sorry. That shit don't run. Not in my book. That shit don't run in my book. Okay? No, it's not Gnosticism. Gnosticism is like a very specific whatever strand of thought and spirituality, whatever. Like, this is just schizophrenia. Okay? It's arbitrary. It's not grounded in any concrete necessity. Concrete necessity means you can justify it before a totality, before a wholeness. Not looking at things one-sidedly and thinking you're a genius for discovering that there's two sides to it. That's not genius. Genius is when you have a novel insight about the totality itself. Right? I just feel like people need to get to work reading Hegel. Like Hegel, you know? And understanding Hegel is harder than reading him. Look, guys, infrared is not an excuse for you to become schizophrenic. I am saying the authorities that be are wrong. I am saying the establishment is wrong. I'm saying these Marxists don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That doesn't absolve you of the responsibility of grounding your worldview in some kind of concrete necessity. At least as far as when you get to the point of wanting to communicate it to others. It doesn't absolve you of that responsibility. I'm not here to foreclose the master signifier and deliver you to psychosis. I'm in the same reality as you, motherfucker. Okay? I am not your, like, permission to escape reality. We are in the same reality, you and I. Okay? And yielding knowledge takes work. It's work you have to do. Just like I have to do it, you have to do it too. And it's pain. It's pain. It's painful. It's really fucking painful to just shut up and hit the books and commit to the work of yielding new insights by thinking in terms of the whole. It's a lot of fucking work. And it's painful. It's literally a feeling of pain. I feel like my message to you is pain. You know what, Pestomime? You and the LaRouche people can have blue. I'm not saying you can't. But it's not a color of communism, okay? You and the LaRouche people can be, I'm blue, da-ba-dee-ba-ba-da.
Easy to understand.
Thank you, PJ.
Once you understand Heidegger. And Heidegger is easy to understand if you've read the Tao Te Ching. Start with Taoism to understand Hegel.
Thank you so much, PJ. That's an interesting insight. But, you know, Pestomime, blue USSR is a horrific idea, okay? You're getting rid of the lively vitality of it, man. Like red is it's our blood, man. It's life. You can't get rid of that. You know? It's the boundlessness of our vitality and our living, you know? It's radiance and power. It's partiality. Blue is just like, ooh, welcome to my escape, mister. Forget it, man. Blue is the color of dreams. Red is the color of blood. We need a dream, sure. But I'm not going to make my flag the flag of a dream. I'm going to make my flag the flag of something I'm going to fight and die for. concretely, here and now. The ocean is beautiful. The sky is beautiful, right? But there's a reason communism is red. There's a reason it's red. It's because it's like an open wound. You have to fight for it. It's not just some fog of obscurity, and it's something you have to fight for. And it's not finished. It's unfinished. And you know what? I don't want to call out anyone. Benign is an OG member of the community, but you know what, Benign? You're also guilty of this problem. Thank you.
When I saw blue USSR, I almost killed myself.
Okay. Thank you for the 5. That's it's taking it a little far. Benign, concrete necessity. Remember that. Concrete necessity. Meaning only have a position that you will defend if there's a gun to your head. You know what I used to say? I always used to talk about the dick guillotine. You want to talk about the dick guillotine? I used to say, do I believe this? I came up with this when I was like 20. I was like, do I believe this? I tell myself. And I'd be like, would I literally put my dick in a guillotine? And if I'm wrong, I let it fall? That's how I measure if I really believe something or think something is necessary to defend. Like, is this really a necessary thing to say or conclude? The only test is the dick guillotine. I don't want to hear anything else. Thank you, Anonymous.
What are your thoughts on circles? Is it a communist shape?
You know what? Go to a mental asylum. Thank you for the 5, but I'm like literally being persecuted by this schizophrenia, okay? I'm sick of abstraction. Abstraction is the key to schizophrenia, okay? Circles and squares are all necessary shapes. They have a grounded existence. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it an existence, but it's like they tell us something necessary about the nature of our very reality. They have an ontological significance like any other shape. And you're not getting to the concrete essence of the matter when you're just abstracting a shape and asking about its significance. Yeah, that's the one I forgot. Well, triangles versus... This is how you get to schizophrenia, man. This is how you lose your mind. When you're insufficiently oriented toward the concrete essence, you lose your fucking mind. Like I feel like I'm being persecuted by schizophrenia. Look, if listen, you want to talk about circles and shit? Go fucking in the dick guillotine. Go in the dick guillotine. Thank you, Harold.
The French Revolution almost adopted the orange banner of the Dutch Liberal Revolution. In a different universe, the color of communism might have been orange.
No, it wouldn't have. It was always... I doubt that. Thank you, Harold, but I doubt that, okay? Red is such a powerful color. There's no way. Anyway, the dick guillotine. If you're going to start talking about shapes and shit... Oh, shapes. I feel like this is just such, like... smelling your own fart, useless contemplation. Go in the dick guillotine. If it's not important enough to risk your dick in the dick guillotine, then don't fucking talk about it. That's my new like if it's not that level of importance, well, you will literally put it in the guillotine for it. Then don't talk to me about it. Yeah, shapes have always had an occult significance. I get it. Just like numbers do, because numbers are ontology. That's what Badu said. And shapes obviously have a special relationship to that. But don't dwell in obscurantism and mysticism, and really not even mysticism. It's just obscurity. Wow, everything's interconnected. Wow. Yeah, we get it. Show us the results. Okay? It's time to risk it all in the guillotine. That's what I'm telling the community. See, Marx was risking it in the guillotine. When Marx was writing Capital and shit, and Lenin, he was risking it in the guillotine. Concrete analysis of the concrete situation, risking it in the guillotine. Pesto Mime, don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it, Pesto Mime. Put it in the guillotine, or don't bring it up. Okay, look, even LaRouche, there was a coherence to LaRouche's worldview, where it all did come back to one, and it was all very coherent and consistent. Okay, I'll give it that. It's not one I necessarily share, but I'll give it. It wasn't just like one random arbitrary schizophrenic observation. You know, just taken. No, there was some kind of something more there, but that LaRouche was a guy who like was studying as a scholar all his fucking life. So it's not the same as when people are asking me about shapes and shit. I don't want to like induce schizophrenia, you know? Like I feel like because when you break the master signifier, which I feel like I'm doing that for some people, it induces literally Lacanian psychoanalysis. That's what creates schizophrenia. When you're in a sense like when the authority of where you derive legitimate knowledge and truth and being comes from breaks down, that can be a proxy for the destruction of the master signifier itself within your psychological, like unconscious, which yes leads to schizophrenia and psychosis and autism. And don't, you know, be in reality. Our reality is our shared future and our shared history of communism, okay? Yeah, I feel like logic is actually something so important. Don't get me wrong. I hate logicians because logicians don't understand the proper place of formal logic. They give it ontological significance when that's not justified. Logic begins and ends with an axiom. Axioms aren't the same as reality itself. So that's my problem with logicians. But yeah, you know what? I really feel like everybody needs to like logic. Drill it in your fucking head. Yes, logic. Like everybody here needs to take logic lessons. If you guys take logic lessons, you'll be able to debate anyone. You know? Yeah, formal logic is important. You need that discipline. Because when you say shit, on what premise is the thing you're like, when you say, for example, a certain fact, be consistent. You're talking about a fact. When you make an argument, be consistent about your argument. It doesn't mean you confuse that for the whole of reality, but yeah, stand by the shit you say. Definitely. Just understand the proper parameters of what you're saying, because sometimes logicians assume too much. Like, for example, with the Anglo box of definitions. When I talk about communism, I'm not necessarily talking about some kind of abstract definition. I'm talking about all the associations of communism, right? So, but logicians will be like, no, that word has one meaning, one sentence that it's reducible to, that I can fuck with arithmetically. And it's like, no, that's not true. So that's an example of how logicians and people doing formal logic will abuse the proper parameters of where their propositions and arguments have relevancy, okay? But overall, it's important. I mean, I wouldn't have gone into law school if I wasn't somebody who had an extremely disciplined understanding of that. Like, you know who doesn't, by the way, is Destiny. And you'd think he does, but he doesn't. He's not very disciplined when it comes to logic. He's more on the rhetoric side of like, does this sound good to an audience? Right? Yeah, he's just rhetoric. He's like super maxed in rhetoric, not very good in logic. Again, it sounds crazy because he talks nerdy and he sounds nerdy and shit when he's talking, but he's just rhetoric. He's not logical consistency is not a strong suit of his. But here's the problem. It doesn't have to be. When you're in a streamer, nobody gives a fuck about logic. It's all rhetoric. Facts and logic people are rhetoricians, not focused on logic. Yeah, like Ben Shapiro. Yeah, Ben Shapiro's definitely maxed in rhetoric. Yeah, you're right. I feel like the most progress I've made debating since I started was rhetoric. I used to be bad at rhetoric. I feel like I've gotten better. My strong suits, believe it or not, my strong suits are philosophical coherence, I like to call it, right? Philosophical rigor and logical rigor. Logic and philosophy. The rigorous explanation of my ideology and philosophy, and logic were my strong suits. Rhetoric was not a strong suit of mine. You know, when I debated Keith Woods and Joel Davis and Keith Woods, everything I was saying, logically and philosophically, there was they had nothing. It was 100% correct. Logically and philosophically, everything I was saying was 1000% correct. But for that audience that I didn't even know who that audience really was, rhetorically, and it was only at the ending, by the way, not in the beginning. At the ending, when they started talking about Somalis in Ireland or something, rhetorically, I was not sounding good rhetorically. Because, you know, the audience are a bunch of retards, and they're like, oh, what do you mean? Rhetorically, like, it was bad, what I was saying, because they were like, what do you mean? What do you mean I can't have kids that look like me? It's like, that's not what I was saying at all, right? I was too much acting in good faith, I feel like, because it was like, I was like, no, I just mean that in the future, hypothetically, you should be open to the fact that an authentic fusion and encounter between different peoples is possible in the far future in a way that's different from multiculturalism and globalism, and which is actually organic in humankind's history, which is full of a fusion and encounter between different peoples. But then people were like, I personally can't have kids that look like this. It was such a stupid, narrow-minded way of interpreting what I was saying. But people on the internet are fucking retards, like 50 IQ, like subhuman level retards. So I didn't realize, you have to be all rhetoric in this environment. You have to be all rhetoric. Because when you're logically and philosophically consistent, people only look at rhetoric. They don't care about any of that. If you want philosophy or logic, whatever, like, I guess read a book. But on the internet, you're debating people, it's all rhetoric. 100% rhetoric. Like, literally 100% rhetoric, right? Literally 100% rhetoric. You know what's sad, guys? When I debate, I don't even bother with what I used to. Like, I'm all rhetoric now. Isn't that sad? You have to be, though. It's sad, but it's like you have to be, you know? You totally have to be.